small local jiu-jitsu things, was training getting better at the Muay Thai. And by the time that Power Slap got a hold of me for season 1, I was 2 weight classes lower and in a lot better shape. And, again, chasing the idea that MMA was probably going to be where I was going to go, again, starting with amateur. And then the next thing you know, I'm a professional athlete in Power Slap.
What's Dana like?
And he's a real one. He'll, whatever he has to say at that point in time is what he genuinely means. And he's not out there fucking around wasting time. He doesn't beat around the bush about anything. Dana walks up and he goes, "Why the fuck did you throw your right hand again? You were up on the scoreboard." So I'm like,
What's up, everybody? Simon here. On this episode of The Ideal Hour, I have a special guest, John Davis. Now, if you go, who is John Davis? John Davis will slap the living lights out of you. He is a former first middleweight champion in Power Slap, which is a league Dana White created. You guys may have seen Power Slap on Instagram. Dude's just getting knocked the hell out. I personally watched it. I enjoy it. And John is on the podcast to talk about what it takes to get slapped and what it takes to slap the shit out of somebody else. So what's up, John? How are you, man?
hey, thank you very much for having me on. I'm excited to get into this.
Yeah, absolutely. Power Slap, dude, it came out of nowhere. Dana White pushed the living lights out of it. He pushed it to the envelope, and it's getting a lot of Instagram views. It was created in 2022, and it's grown rapidly. So go over a little bit of that and how the hell you got involved and why you got involved.
Dumb luck. I stumbled upon it. Even before the very first event, there was a time where there was an event that we refer to as the qualifier. So it was the very first time that, Dana has anyone even coming in to attempt to do this. They're trying to figure, we don't have rules set yet. Like, they had a baseline for rules, but when we showed up, again, before the first season had even started yet, we were the guinea pigs for this, and I happened to stumble across it looking to get into amateur MMA.
Okay.
One day, all the forums at the same time had the same ad talking about slapping for money, and I was like, man, this, I'm pretty sure I posted something like a comment or was like, this sounds like a crock. And within a short time, I've got a 60-page contract saying that I'm about to go, to the UFC Apex to compete in what's going to be Power Slap. So, yeah, it was a real big surprise. Never thought it was gonna, be something that I was really entertaining doing, and apparently I'm really good at it. So, here I am now. Like you said, the views and the growth of Power Slap from the beginning to now are absolutely, astonishing.
You mentioned you want to do amateur MMA, and when Power Slap first came out, people were like, who wants this, right? Why is this necessary? I mean, I truly love, I think the slap for me was a man putting another man in place. Back in the day, someone would get killed over a slap, right? It'd be a duel or something like this. It's highly entertaining. But you mentioned amateur MMA. Why convert to just the slapping aspect of it? Because obviously it's still a skill. There's still practice. I mean, I know you got injured. You dislocated your elbow in one fight.
Yes.
Why jump on Power Slap versus like MMA or pursue that thing?
I still am in the pursuit of anything combat sports wise that I can get into. What really honestly happened was we did that qualifier event that I was speaking about. Time had gone by. I had gotten in a lot better shape compared to when I had got into that qualifying event, and was, really on the road, had done, a few, small local jiu-jitsu things, was training getting better at the Muay Thai. And by the time that Power Slap got a hold of me for season 1, I was 2 weight classes lower and in a lot better shape. And, again, chasing the idea that, MMA was probably going to be where I was going to go, again, starting with amateur. And then the next thing you know, I'm a professional athlete in Power Slap who, I'm contractually obligated to technically not do anything else. And then once I became a title holder, I was even more so, not that I was stuck by any means, but
Yeah. You were into
I
it.
was in a lane where I knew I had to keep driving that as far as it would go.
Dude, that's crazy, man. And let me ask you, you've obviously probably met Dana White at this point. Is the guy intense? Is he business oriented? What's Dana like?
Man, he's a real one. You know, he'll whatever he has to say at that point in time is what he genuinely means.
Mm.
And you know, he's not out there fucking around wasting time. He doesn't beat around the bush about anything. Always, even when I wasn't fighting, when I was there, like you said, after when I had injured my shoulder, asked me how my shoulder was doing, made sure that, you know, I was getting everything taken care of when it came to the medical stuff that they provided me with, which was, you know, above and beyond. So it was, you know, he's a great dude and has really, you know, blown this entire thing out of the water for everyone who was like, this isn't going to be anything. Well, guess what? We haven't gone anywhere, and the drive hasn't stopped anybody from pushing on even further than where we're already at.
Dude, I completely agree, man. He marketed it so well. And at first, when it came out, people were questioning it. The UFC people were questioning it. The UFC account posting it was a little bit of a debate. But this is a serious thing. And you said you blew your shoulder out. That was against Wesley Drain, is that correct?
That is correct. Yep, power slap two.
Yeah, power. Oh my God. So what give me a perspective. Like, how do you plan for a power slap match? I mean, are you asking your wife or girlfriend to slap the crap out of you? Are you getting your buddy to hit you in the back of the head after a few beers or whatever? Like, what's going on here?
You know, I take the same mentality into it. Back in the day, you know, I was a bit wild when I was younger, so my friends and I grew up out in the cornfields and the oil well driveways, just beating the shit out of each other for fun. So, you know, getting into this and training for this, I really was able to be like, hey, this is a fun thing, but I can also become very I got lost in it, to say the least. So pushing myself as far as possible, because you know you're going to go up there and you're going to get hit. That at the end of the day, unless you win the coin toss, go up there and one piece them, you're going to take a shot. So for, you know, like a training thing, especially when I'm in peak shape and I know I have something coming, because that thought in the back of my mind is definitely, you know, like a hot bird digging in my side that I just got to keep moving on forward. I'll do a 10-mile run, and that's really when I'm pushing it for length. So you get completely exhausted to where your body wants to give up. Mentally, you want to just not be doing anything. And then once that run is over, then you go practice the strikes. You go make
Wow.
sure they're clean. You make sure that your feet aren't moving. You know, doing like a 45-minute sauna where you're breaking the time up in the sauna, going out, throwing a couple strikes, getting back in the sauna. So that way, when you're up there getting rocked and you're all discombobulated, I've been practicing at home what it's like to do this all sorts of, you know, fucked up to say the least, and still be able to keep competing and do it by the rule set. So that way you're not having any penalties and you can win whether by knockout or by clean sweep.
Dude, that's intense. 10-mile runs, and people would say, well, why you don't really need to prepare for this as much. Like, you don't need to be in tip-top shape, but it sounds like this really helps. So you're mentally breaking yourself down to be able to prepare for a slap. And to your point, you mentioned something interesting in a lot of other fights or sporting events, MMA, jiu-jitsu. If you're good, you could avoid a hit. I mean, you can technically not get hit at all. I mean, we've seen it in MMA or even in a
Yeah.
jiu-jitsu match where someone just dominates it in less than a minute and so forth. In power slap, you're gonna get one big hit no matter what. Like, you know what I mean? Pretty much. It's unless you knock them out on your first slap, I would imagine. So but you're gonna get a hit. Is there a rebuttal? Let's say you go first and you slap the shit out of somebody, they're knocked out or they get back. There's no rebuttal, right?
No, that as long as the call is clean, because the only thing that would happen was, say you strike first, you hit me, you know, whatever happens, I go to strike next, I knock you out, but there's a foul that occurs, you technically win that bout because you could no longer continue. and it was my illegal strike that caused the damage. Therefore, you win that bout, and it's that easy to screw yourself out of a win.
Yeah, you get disqualified. I watched that happen a lot in your fight with Quinones. He kept flinching and moving, and that was a freaking brutal fight. I know you didn't win that fight, but my God, the side of his face looked like it was going to explode, man, because you've had some extra shots. Uh,
Yeah.
Describe that.
He told me specifically because he had a quick turnaround after winning that match. He told me specifically that he didn't think that he was fully healed from our match yet when he took that fight, and that's part of why he had trouble in his last match. So, that's a testament to A, how tough he is, because I clobbered the shit out of him, but B, this sport can be unforgiving, and you want to be as a competitor, you never want to say no. At least in my mind, I'm sure I know plenty of people that have said no and walked away from fights, but you don't want to say no, and especially in an instance like that, you just won the belt. He was at his hype. He gets that phone call. Of course, he says yes, and then it's a controversial fight. And now, actually, tonight will be the first time live on YouTube. The middleweight championship first main event will be Quinones versus Bordeaux for the rematch.
Wow, that's insane. Going into this fight, are you ever scared that you're gonna get knocked out? Like, are you worried at all, or you're like, hey, this is what I'm here to do?
I've been a loser in the aspect of life in many different ways before. So when it comes to losing in this sport, especially because we know what we're doing. Everyone who signs these contracts, we know what we're doing. We know how risky it is. We know what could very well happen. It's not something to really think about, because the more you focus on it, in my mind, the more you bring it into reality. If you start talking about it, you're speaking it into reality. So even if you're lying to yourself the entire time before you get it up there to go compete, who knows? That could be exactly what you needed. So that way you get up there and you surprise the shit out of yourself.
Would you say a person slap is more powerful in some cases than the punch? Obviously, it depends who's throwing it, but like, I mean, I never thought a slap could be so freaking powerful. And I don't want to get hit by you to realize it, but it's like, dude, these slaps are like a serious deal, man. Like before you would slap somebody in a play fight, you don't think you're gonna knock them out. You know what I mean? Like you were young, I was young, we would run around and slap each other or whatever, and just say,
Mm-hmm.
aha. But like your slap rated like as far as a knockout power. I mean, would you slap someone on the street or would you punch someone if you saw them? You know what I mean?
I would much rather just take someone down and not have to hit them anymore, because it's to the point where, the second I knock somebody out in public, especially if I do slap someone, that's going to be the first time that they're going to, that's going to blow up all over every media. People are going to be losing their minds and, oh, professional slapper. Not well, guess what? You shouldn't have been trying to rob the gas station in front of me and I wouldn't have knocked you out. So, that's the kind of scenario where that would happen. But if someone comes at me in public, for the most part, I'm not trying to have any of that. I would rather, make a nice bag of cash to do, the violent activities that are fun for us to do, and leave it inside where it belongs, not out in the streets where, people are dumb and very likely to get hurt and, if not killed, out in the street doing something goofy like that.
That's probably the best advice to anyone listening is keep it in the ring. You don't want someone to fall, hit their head, and now you're doing, jail time or something, or even
Yeah,
get
looking at manslaughter because you wanted to have fun. That's why I tell any kids that I see, I'm like, I understand it's great to watch us and we're up there doing some crazy stuff, but don't be at home doing this, please.
Yeah. Let me ask you, have people challenged you now that you kind of got more popular around town and in your area? That people come up and say, slap me, let's see what happens, drunk or not?
I haven't had anyone walk up to me and say that. I have been, I won't say any names because it was a close call, but there was one time someone had unfortunately just lost, and it was like that evening or the next day. And there's some drunk guy in the casino, and he's like, "Yeah, it's fine. You can hit, it's not gonna." He's not understanding what it is that we're doing as an activity. And he's like, "Yeah, we'll just go up in your room and you can hit me." And we're like, "No, you can't take this guy to go slap him in your hotel room because you're gonna knock him out. Like it's gonna be a problem." But I haven't had to deal with that yet. The most I've had is people saying that they're glad that they didn't fight me in high school, because after watching me do power slap, they were like, "Man, I probably didn't stand a chance at all."
They wouldn't even know. Let me ask you, who's the hardest you've been slapped by? Like, would you say, because if you got slapped and you got knocked out, you probably may not remember that slap so much, right? You're just lights out.
Yeah.
But who would you say are some of the toughest slappers that you've experienced?
Obviously Isaiah when he knocked me out, but like you said, up in like I remember hearing him say three, and then after that, of course, is a blank page for a little bit of time. But other than him, Wesley Drain had a hammer on him. My face was all swelled up afterwards. Again, everyone definitely hits hard that I've gone against, but I'd say the heaviest hits that I've taken and survived would have been from Dorian Perez. He actually competed for the heavyweight title recently and lost that bout, and he lost it after a 5-round war. And then he has another match actually this evening against a guy who's an up and coming KO guy. So taking shots from a heavyweight that fight's never been put out, and it's partially because it was again at that very very beginning part where we were all learning and the rule set was still give or take. I had taken some shots that were deemed illegal by the time season 1 rolled around, so it definitely helped with making the rule set, and was by far one of the craziest, most legendary things that I've ever got to do in power slap. And unfortunately no one's really even been able to see it other than the 10 people that were in the room that day and myself and Dorian Perez.
That's crazy. It reminds me of like UFC 3 or UFC 2, where, the miss weights, there's no gloves. It was a real thing. You know what I mean? Is
Oh
that
yeah,
kind of,
one boxing glove.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It was just crazy. You got some big dude running around against a little guy. And so Power Slap took some time. Dana White, I'm sure, really worked on it as well as he did with the UFC to really formulate it into a very competing sport that's also marketable and great for advertisers and so forth. How long did that process take since 2022? Was it like a year in, it started getting kind of, you know, uh, moving in the right direction, I should say, in terms of regulations and everything else?
Um, it's I would say probably yes, because the changes started happening within the first 3 events. I competed on 1 to win the belt, 2, like you said, against Wesley Drain, 3, I got to coach. And by the time the third event was going on, rules are changing. We're having to have more extensive rules meetings. I know as of now, I think they have a whole video that they've done up for rules meetings in case Mark or someone's not going to be able to make it on time, and they can just have it to throw up there. And they're really dialing it in, because like I know everyone who's down there now, I've heard around the water cooler that they're tightening up even more. So within the first year, I definitely say the exponential growth of rules and them being made, and trying their best to get this new entity of a sport to be as controlled as possible, considering it's controlled chaos at its finest.
With Wesley Drain, you dislocated your shoulder, but you also continued to compete. Like, what was that like mentally? And you kind of goes back to what you were saying. You run 10 miles, you drain yourself, and then you're still going, and that's when the match starts.
Yeah, that was, ironically, when I joined, because I joined the Marine Corps when I was 19, my left shoulder had separated and unfortunately ended my Marine Corps career. So It felt like I was right back in that spot, to be completely honest. I'm sitting there with my entire career that I've just become the champion of, second event of the entire sport, and I'm blinking thinking, my career could be over. My arm might not work right ever again.
Wow.
And also in that same time, it's like, well, I'm already up here, and if they're not going to make me stop, I'm going to keep going. So I was able to throw a few more strikes with my left hand. I spent more time telling the doctor that I was all right, and having the ref, because the referee went out of his way to check on me as well, and brought the doctor up a second time, I think. So I spent more time convincing them I was going to be all right to continue than I was actually spent during that fight. But I watched it back not too long ago, and in that final round, the crowd, of course, is going, throw the right, and it was one of those moments where, like, I'm hillbilly cornbread to the center of me, to my core. And it was like, you know what? Whatever. I didn't think that I was technically winning in that moment in time. And of course, the whole crowd's going. There's some dude in a leopard jacket. I can still remember that leopard jacket, beer in the air. And I'm just like, you, buddy, thank you. And I went out there and I threw my right hand again. I ended up getting a stepping foul because I overcompensated for not wanting to hurt myself more. And it was actually, it dropped me a point, and because I would have won by 2 points, but I only ended up winning by one because I had a point taken away. And before they called the decision, Dana walks up and he goes, "Why the fuck did you throw your right hand again? You were up on the scoreboard." So I'm like, I don't know, man. I was just completely disassociated at that point because I thought I had lost, because it wasn't it to me. I'm a perfectionist in something like that because I have trained so hard and worked so hard at it. So when things they weren't going how I wanted them to, it was aggravating. And I was like, well, shit, if I lose, it is what it is. And luckily I was able to come away with the W yet again.
To Dana's funny. I love that he said that, and I'm glad he's the type of guy that tells you like it is and does it. That says for his success. You also mentioned training. We kind of talked a little bit about it earlier, where you're running and beating yourself up. But in like UFC training, or even in other sports, you're getting, maybe for a big competition, you're getting a same body type. UFC fighters do it all the time, heavyweights versus heavyweights. In your training, do you get other power slap guys to meet up with, and you guys slap each other, or is training more cardio and strength and form? Like, are people actually slapping each other in training to the point where, can I take it or not, or do you guys stay away from that?
I think most people, they might have that done a few times, but I don't think anyone, no one in Power Slap, I think, should be going and having a hard spar day where, you're risking having an issue down the road. It's more so I know a lot of people have stuck with using a pool noodle. You cut a pool noodle down to about a foot or two, and then you get a decent amount of space between, obviously, where you're holding it and where you're going to land. And it helps you just get used to the fact that you're going to sit there and take it. It builds that thought in your mind to where you're not going to flinch and have a problem.
Let's talk about the beard. You didn't have a beard against Quinones, or a small beard. I can't recall, but
I get it trimmed up.
you trimmed it up. You cleaned yourself up. That's good. I do that, too, actually, recently. But does a beard help? I mean, because I'm sure it provides that cushion, just a slight bit. And then does it help with distance? I mean, is it an advantage for power slap people?
I've always said I don't think that it's helpful. It maybe takes like 20% of the actual sting off your cheek a little bit, but it's not taking away the power. We're throwing so hard, and with all of the technique practice that, like, most of us are doing, this is like the equivalent of disc throwers slapping each other. Because, like, Vern Cathy, for example, was a disc thrower, so his technique is very correlated to that. But when it comes to the actual beard itself, like the real big ones, I can understand why people have an issue, finding the chin or whatever underneath. even though you can pretty much look at the cheek right here and guesstimate where the hell it's supposed to be. But what do I know, right? They've changed the rules now to where I think they've had them rubber banding it, and I don't know if they are having people cut them now or what. I just usually keep it trimmed and cleaned up beforehand anyhow. I've been growing a beard since I was like 14, so it's such a pain in the butt for me to keep clean shaven. And I really, I have enough things to do, so I just I let it go for now. I get a nice haircut and shave before I go compete, and then kind of leave it at that. But there's no beard tactics that I go into a fight with.
With Power Slap, are athletes allowed to get sponsorships? I know it's a new sport. Have people reached out to you for sponsorships or other athletes that you know of? Is it easy to get a sponsorship with the sport becoming so big?
I wouldn't know if it's necessarily easy for everybody. The lucky people who end up with the viral clips or who have been champions or have had a lot of success to where their clips are brought up a lot. It definitely helps out a lot because we're absolutely allowed to have sponsors. I'm trying to think. I think it honestly might have been before Power Slap 2. Myself, AJ Hints, and Wolverine sat down with Dana, and he asked if we had gotten any sponsors. And of course, the three of us were kind of like, we thought that wasn't really, an option, but it obviously is, and it's on us to get the sponsorships outside of Power Slap. Whatever correlations that any sponsor someone may or may not have now through Power Slap, that's all going to be new compared to anything that's gone in the past. So everyone up until recently has, you have the ability to, but we're not walking out with them with a t-shirt on, and we're not doing, Power Slap paid for things with that kind of, with your t-shirt, with your hat. If you can sneak it into a video, great. But normally it's going to be on you completely to get those sponsorships and all of that stuff taken care of.
Cool, man. Thank you for sharing that. That's great news because I know some organizations want the bread and instead of passing it to the to the athletes. You defended your title twice. Um, First title defense, like I know it's different than winning the title. What's more fun, defending the title or winning the title, being champion? What's more nerve-wracking as well?
Um, Honestly, I'd say the most exciting one was winning the first title because that is a big brick in the foundation of Power Slap. That night that all four of us went out and won the very first title in Power Slap in our weight classes, and had millions of people watching, and it just shocked the hell out of the world.
That's cool, man. And defending it, were you worried about like, hey, this might be a one done deal? I mean, it wasn't, but that's always a
Yeah,
nerve-wracking thing.
it was definitely a thought, but I feel like I had more nerves going into my second title defense because of coming back from the injury. Everyone's assuming that now I'm broken, I haven't been able to recover, I'm washed up. The
Mhm.
BS comes flowing in from every direction, and of course, went out there, went a good clean 5 rounds. Where shout out to Azael Rodriguez, that dude just wouldn't go down. People say he's got the zombie effect where he just stays up ever since the first time we met to compete for the very first belt. So I would say the second title defense, because of how my career went, was a little more nerve wracking than the second.
Yeah, and then Azael was in Power Slap 5. That was a good match. So yeah, man, that's not easy. Let me ask you, do you worry about any like repercussions? I mean, the safety aspect of it is it's pretty serious. I mean, we talked earlier about it. You're gonna get hit and maybe multiple times and hit hard, and you can't defend yourself. So a punch can't be blocked or directed. You can't duck and weave. In fact, you can't even move, which is interesting. But do you worry about like long-term effects? Concussions, anything that goes through a mind of a power slap professional?
As much as anybody else in any combat sport or even sport in general, as much as they worry about that is what I worry about. A lot of people ask, well, why are you willing to sacrifice that stuff? Let me put it to you this way. As someone who's worked blue collar jobs my entire life, I'm risking my health every single day I go to work, breathing in God knows what, dealing with God knows what. Instead of it being a live show for people to watch happen, it's slowly, I've worked with so many dudes and had people in my family that you get cancer, you get this, you get that, you don't take care of yourself because the only thing you ever do is just keep working yourself to death. And I would rather take a shot and see what I can do with this endeavor that has already taken me so far. If I stopped and was that worried about it, I just wouldn't do it anymore. I played football in high school. I've got the concussion thing. It's possible, absolutely. We all understand that brain nap, but I also believe all people are built different. If you pay attention to it, if you take care of your health right, you're not going to have these effects where a smaller boxer who's been cutting weight their entire career gets knocked out 14 times and is still out there competing. Like, that's a problem. I definitely feel like, at a certain point, if no one says anything to someone who's in a circumstance like that, then you never had the right people around you to help take care of you. Because, like, obviously, there's always the moment where you forget something, or you fumble a word and you're like, oh no, is this the
Is
moment where
this
it
it?
starts to happen? You start freaking yourself out a little bit, and then luckily my buddy will be like, no, you're just a dumbass all the time anyhow, don't worry, don't worry about it. So
Dude,
a nice
don't
little
worry about it.
reminder, yeah, a nice little reminder that it was that way beforehand, and there doesn't seem like no one notices anything. I don't notice anything. Obviously it's a lot to deal with, especially getting hit in the head. If you have mental health things like your depression and anything else that you already deal with, of course it's risky business to add on to that. But I mean, look at the NFL. Their stuff that they're coming out with, and now that they're trying to help prevent it, and it's such a big controversial thing that at the end of the day, anyone who does any sport ever, like even little kids in soccer, are getting concussions from heading balls. And that's, we shouldn't be jumping on trampolines.
Yeah,
It's to the point where if we're all going to start nitpicking
yeah.
because of what I'm doing, what I chose to do that's dangerous, that I know what I'm doing and what I'm getting into, I mean, what are we doing here? So,
I,
we
I,
know as
I
adults,
think I think when it's your time to go, so to speak, and you could get hurt doing anything, like you said, especially at work or anywhere else. I mean, you're right.
exactly.
We can't be a bunch of sissies and stop doing every type of sport out there that could potentially hurt us. We shouldn't even walk across the street with that type of perspective. So,
Exactly. Your alarm goes off in the morning. You could fall out of your bed, smack your head, and it'd be game over. You didn't even make it anywhere other than 1 minute into the start of your day.
yeah. Let me ask you a quick question here. With Power Slap, is it like if someone wants to get into Power Slap, it's new, so I wouldn't imagine that the pay is so high yet. But is it enough pay to make it a career out of this? Is it enough pay to get good side money to invest in yourself or a business or whatever else? Or is it kind of on the cusp of getting bigger and bigger?
For me, luckily, since I was in the position I was in as being, again, the first championship bouts, when you're at the top, it's definitely good extra money. I haven't been able to walk away from a regular job yet, but also unlike most people, I've got a whole, 4 kids to take care of and my wife. So, it's definitely been helpful, but also a process of figuring out, because it's great when you're competing, but I've also had time where they didn't have a match for me. They didn't want to give a fight or whatever the scenario was. And the time away definitely sucks because, first year I competed 3 times. Second year I was pretty much off for actually an entire year from Power Slap 5 till the time that I went up against 𝐒𝐢𝐦𝐨𝐧 over in Abu Dhabi.
Hmm. I see, I see. So it's kind of hard. You're saying during downtime, it's you could be planning on that money from your past fight to keep coming in, but then you may not get a fight, and then all of a sudden you're kind of crunched for spending potentially because that money was a stream. Um, and getting back to what you said earlier, like when you say a word and you're like, is this because I had a concussion or I got slapped or you're missing a word? I get that all the time. I got 3 kids. So even in the kitchen, I'm like, what is that called? So don't worry about it. I think it just happens with having kids, man. Um, so the pay is not bad. Do you think Power Slap is going to make it like a career pay where, I mean, if you look at the UFC, from some of the biggest names in the UFC now, Perea. You got Jones, you got so many names out there, Volk. They've made it kind of a career, and then their Instagram blew up, and then from there, they've Taporia, like he's a great businessman that uses his platform on and off, but they're able to expand on it. Do you think Power Slap's going to get to that level where people are going to be able to expand off that maybe short term or even somewhat of a not lengthy career? I don't know how long a career would be since it's so new.
Yeah, for the career thing, I've seen people have 2 competitions and be out of, I've watched them come after me and go before me. So it can be a 1 fight thing, it can be a 2 fight thing. We've got people that are on their like 11th or 12th fight and they're still at it. Um, what was the second part of the question again?
I'm saying, do you think it's going to expand? Like it's going to be
Okay,
a
yep.
kind of like a career path where you don't have to have a second job. This is going to be the job, and then you might even get a salary, or you may be able to utilize your platform that gets bigger, just like all these UFC fighters are doing. They're getting millions of followers, and then they're getting the promotions and not having to really have a full-time job where they're breathing in crap or doing hard labor or whatever.
Yeah, no, I believe that it's right at the cusp of that. We've had some the bigger names coming in when it comes to competitors. So, obviously, what was it? Dumpling got 25,000 and 3 goats is what the interview Dana did, I believe. So, the potential is there, and I believe it's starting to happen now. I know the investors had made their money back in a very short time. So everything else, I'm sure at this point, contracts being renegotiated, new people, the influencer side of all this, where someone who's got a couple million followers might decide, hey, I've got a wild hair at my ass today. I want to go try Power Slap. So, it could very well lead into something. I don't want to say, anyone's going to be making multi-million dollars, but I do believe sooner than later, if you can have a good couple fight career and be very entertaining on and off the stage, it's going to be a lot easier for you to be successful and hopefully be able to make a good amount of money.
You
And then
know,
like you
it's
said, the platform, like I had 200 followers, but before I even entered any of this world. So, I went to school with 200 people. So the people who I had on there were probably people that literally I went to school with or had met at a party or something goofy like that. I'm at, working on 3,500, I think now, which isn't a big number, but also I grew up in a town with 400 people originally. So to have 3,500 people
big.
who regularly may or may not look and see what it is I'm doing because they think what I've done with part of my life is cool, that's all I could ask for, and it's just growing as time goes on.
Good for you, man. You're a celebrity in your own town. And speaking of that, how cool would it be? Well, I don't know if it'd be cool or not, but maybe if you talk to Dana, an idea is celebrity power slap at like one match out of the professional, get the professionals done or before it started off as a prelim kind of thing with the celebrity power slap match. And there's a lot of celebrities out there that want money because they're not making anymore, right? But
Oh yeah.
I'd love to see like I don't think Tom Hanks would do it, but I'd love to see Tom Hanks get the shit slapped out of him. You know what I mean? And
Oh yeah, that's too scary for old Tom Hanks. I know Shaq was calling out oh dang, I can't think of his name. I'm drawing a blank on it right now. Who he does the show with.
Charles Barkley.
Charles Barkley. Yeah,
Oh, I would love that.
He called out Charles Barkley, and I was like, man, that would be absolutely insane. But it makes perfect sense for things like that to happen in the future, because I don't know if you know what karate combat is, but they have the whole influencer fight league, and like to me that's so intriguing and so much fun because it gives people an opportunity. You watch people's lives change because they start getting more active. Like, yes, there's a fight where things could be dangerous, but you see their health and their well-being of life get better because they're striving for something and there's a goal for them to reach and try to attain. And I feel like, again, on the entertainment side, you get the right people, man. It's inevitable. Eventually that's probably going to happen.
Man, I'd pay to watch Shaq and Chuck go at it. That would be awesome. And totally to your point, man. If you have celebrities or people that have a following to get in on it, they're just going to draw more people to the sport. You know what I mean? They're going to draw more attention to the sport. So someone that you've been following on Instagram or whatever it may be does this type of event. It's kind of interesting. I'm wondering if, Dana's been always against celebrity kind of involvement in professional sports, and I could see why. But I think with Power Slap, it would really give a good start, in my opinion, at least, to an event. Like it's a fun start. Who doesn't want to, you know what I mean? Like whether it's Jake Paul or whoever comes in or Shaq or even women, etc. I'd love to see that, and I think it's a great idea, and it would just bring more audiences to Power Slap itself, man.
I've definitely heard a lot of the influencers that go there. They say that they're interested or they say they would try it, but I have yet to see any come up there. So as soon as they do, it's like, hey, you're probably in for a rude awakening because this storyline of everyone coming off the couch, not having to train, not being athletic anymore, like that doesn't work for us anymore because so many people who had that off the couch style, like it doesn't work anymore. You have too many people who actually are trying, who actually give a damn and are out there busting their asses to, like you said, turn this into what could be a future big career and get their 15 seconds so that way after that you have another bargaining chip for all the opportunities that may or may not come knocking on your door.
Love that. And you made a great point. I think the stigma was originally with Power Slap. Who are these like guys that are just slapping each other? There's not a lot involved in prep, or they look like they got off the couch and they're gonna hit each other. But in reality, you're right, man. Once you put a title to it, there's going to be someone that takes it really, really seriously and wants to improve their craft and will put it down. But dude, I'm telling you, man, there's just so many celebrities that I would love to see smacked, and I think it would just be so fun to watch. Let's talk about. Are you currently looking for a fight? You mentioned you're coaching now, or you coached in your last event. What's the future looking like for you in Power Slap? Are you going to be coming back in it, even though you said there's some naysayers that say you're done and your shoulders out or whatever it may be?
I've coached 2 or 3 events. They've reached out to me to actually coach people on the side from home. So I was video calling with the one young lady before she got her opportunity. I would love to do anything with them. I was supposed to be in Vegas right now, with a fight, and it was going to be a weight class up. It was going to be probably the most unexpected, exciting fight for them to announce other than the title fights, but it fell through. And unfortunately, I'm sitting here, not that I wouldn't want to be sitting here with you. I'd much rather be sitting here with you in Vegas on the laptop compared to, up here in Ohio. So,
I'd
I'm
rather be,
looking.
hey, listen, no offense. I'd rather be in Vegas too. I'm not taking it, bro.
I would have loved to have had that fight come to fruition, but I'm still number one in the middleweight division. I was the longest reigning champion up until that point, multiple title defenses. I've done things in the sport that, my blood, sweat, and tears are in the rules of this sport. They're in the foundation of it. And forever, the legacy and accolades that I've built already are, probably higher than most people are ever going to be able to really attain in this sport. So, whatever comes next, I've done so much in it already. Not that I'm ready to just, retire and walk away, because I believe wholeheartedly I have more to do. I can be a champion again. But I got my golden ticket, I did the thing that people want to be able to do. I'm a champion under one of the biggest promotions, under Dana White, ran with Frank and Erica. And, I've done the things that now the people, luckily because of social media, who are possibly willing to give me opportunities in the future to compete in that karate combat setting, that dirty boxing they have now. I recently got a phone call. What was that?
Yeah, I had Adam on the podcast from Dirty Boxing, and he's a co-founder of Karate Combat. Do you know him?
I don't personally know him. I know of him through following both of those.
Yeah.
But both of those are the perfect example of, yet again, another new combat sport for people to get into. That, sure, you can have a former UFC champion in there, but it's a different rule set. It's different in general with how that pit is, with how that dirty boxing ring set up, with how Power Slap is. So this is I always have said that this was the first door to hopefully a million more doors to be open soon. And, really, I just want to compete. I'm 32, going to be 33 in August. I have until I'm 40, because I'm sure by the time I'm 40, if I still feel good enough to compete, holy shit, I'll be surprised. So any sort of
Oh, go ahead.
any sort of combat sport competition I can get in that time that I have left, I absolutely want to do.
You're gonna do it. At 40, you start forgetting more words. That's just
probably.
It has nothing to do with getting slapped. Let me ask you, if why did this event, like you said, you were supposed to be in Vegas, but it canceled last minute? Is there anything you want to share as to why it got canceled? Did they just pull the plug, or you couldn't make it, or what happened?
From what I understand, the opponent had pulled out. I don't know exactly why. I didn't get any details why. I haven't heard anything, from him, other than, some an emoji and some shit talking, which I think is quite hilarious, considering, if I understand correctly, he was the one that pulled out of the fight, not me. But, it is what it is, and there's nothing that I can do about that. It sucks, because I never thought that, with everything that I've done in Power Slap, I never thought I'd have anyone back out of the fight. Yeah. So,
it doesn't make sense. They should have taken the fight, especially with your name.
Yeah. I signed a contract that was ready to go. I had started training. I had invested time and money into being able to get ready and do what I needed to do. And then within a week's time period, it was, completely scrapped, and, make it up to you on the next one, I guess, as we'll see how that goes.
And no, they couldn't get another opponent.
They didn't want one because of, again, the most unexpected, exciting matchup was pretty much the storyline for what that fight was supposed to be. And unfortunately, nothing else, no other narratives were good for what was gonna, what should or could be coming.
I see. That sucks, man. I'm sorry to hear that, but I'm sure Dana will make it up to you and Power Slap, and we'll see you slap the crap out of somebody else soon. Do you guys, Twitter fingers, or posts, they call them now, no longer Twitter. Do you guys ever talk smack to each other on Instagram or on, X or whatever, and just, I'll slap the shit out of you, but
I usually don't get too caught up into it, but since the beginning, especially being a champion, you get every person out of left field that is, competitors, not competitors, saying the craziest, wildest shit. I usually like to respond with funny emojis or GIFs. because it's, even if it's like, if you just said something ignorant to me in a comment and I respond with like someone taking a bite out of a sandwich, you're thinking, what the hell? Because yeah, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense why you're talking smack to me either. So, people definitely get carried away with the keyboard warrior shit. And I like to bring it up when we're face to face because it's a whole different game at that point.
I love that. I love that. You don't take it personal. There needs to be like Conor McGregor in Power Slap, like a loudmouth. I don't know if there is one on his level, but he made a big name for himself and helped the UFC. But you're right. I think all that smack talking, someone's going to get humbled. It doesn't matter, but.
That's what happened to the person, I believe, who was trying to be the Conor McGregor. That loudmouth, unfortunately for him, was quieted, and now he's nowhere to be found. Apparently,
he's not on Twitter anymore. I got you. You mentioned so you mentioned you do jiu-jitsu as well. Do you still practice jiu-jitsu or?
Not recently. I've had to, again, with the long layoff in between competitions, I really had to kind of change up how I was doing everything. But, I could go into the gym any point in time and still go compete. I still, I have my jujitsu dummy at home that I do a little bit of stuff on here and there. I have the Boss Root and training system to where it's got the head and the pads and the body for me to go out and do striking. So everything that on my own, to the best of my ability, I'm able to do, I try and keep a little fluent in. So that way I know, like, hey, if, for some reason Power Slap were to fall off and I were to not ever compete again, I would know it's going to be an easier transition to get into fighting and competing in, karate combat, trying to think here. What's Eddie Bravo's palm striking combat jiu-jitsu. Combat jiu-jitsu looks, by the way, that looks like fun to me,
Yeah, we've had in our place, we've had someone compete at combat jiu-jitsu. It's basically a fight. I mean, there's no different than it's weird.
What I mean? And it looks fun to me because I don't have to worry about where my hand lands now. I can just palm you in the forehead and very well, possibly just knock you out at the beginning. So that sounds fine with me. Fair shot. If you're gonna try and leg lock me, I'm gonna pummel your forehead in with my palm.
Yeah, I love that, man, because those leg locks are not fun, and taking away the fact that you can't hit someone from trying to, toe hold you or any of those moves.
Getting stuck in a calf slicer without being able to smack him in the mouth.
Man, it's not fun when that happens and you can't do anything. That'd be. I haven't seen much of Eddie Bravo's combat jiu-jitsu, but I've seen a live event and that was pretty intense. I'm gonna say it's a different level of jiu-jitsu and it's almost a fight. So I don't know how you train for that, but it's pretty interesting because you can't go full blow to blow, but you wanna smack the crap out of that person just to let go or whatever. All right, so you've talked about maybe this is a gateway. I think, what advice would you give to like a future power slapper? Is this a gateway to maybe something else? Like if I'm looking to get into power slap, how would you coach me or what advice would you give me?
Find, when it comes to the actual technique stuff, find what you're comfortable doing. As simple of a task that's at hand, there's still plenty of different techniques for how people are moving, how they're holding themselves, the angle they're throwing the strike at. So that way everything goes right and you want it to land clean and land in the window of, it's pretty much it's just the tiniest window that you have to be landing clean. If your hand's giant, there's not much you can do about that, but training, the cleanliness and by the rule set, training to where every muscle group you're working on for the most part is correlated to you throwing the strike. It's great to bench 500, 400 pounds, whatever, but also that's only going to help you so much in power slap. You're going to be better off, again, finding a motion and workouts that are correlated to the movements that you're doing, even if it's just, like half lifts, how people do half reps. If you're finding something that is, strengthening your shoulders, helping with the forearm, helping with your elbow. Neck workouts are a big thing that people are getting into, the iron neck type of stuff. And then, of course, the old school wrestling, bridging, and all of that kind of work where it's all body weight and tension. And, but besides that part, be ready for the social media aspect, because that's the biggest thing that caught me off guard. Like, I didn't expect to fall into this social media influencer lane. And it's definitely taken me time to accept that that's what I'm part of. So the sooner you're prepared for that, the more knowledge you have on doing that kind of stuff. If you're a bad motherfucker and you can go up there and give a hit and take a hit, then the rest is really on you to take that, like I said, that 15 seconds of fame you're going to get, the clips that are going to get the millions of views, that's going to get your face out there, to end up, in this position right here where I get to talk to you outside of the clips, outside of the fights. You get to learn who I am as a person, and I get to explain things in such an in-depth way for Power Slap that a lot of people, until this happens, are never going to know, and they're never going to understand.
Man, that's crazy. Do you get social media hate, or, UFC is obviously really big, but I do see the comments, you're not ready for this fight, he's going to fail again, blah, 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 and so forth. Do you get hate and encouragement, or is it mainly just people talking trash? You know,
I get more encouragement than anything. I've had quite a few people reach out to me and say that, they saw my journey, they remember me from school, they started working out again. I just had a guy the other day actually send me a message in the morning, completely caught me off guard. He was like, what's wild? I was like, what's up? Haven't talked to him in quite some time. Not that we're, the closest of friends or anything. And he's like, all those teachers and coaches that were such dicks to you in high school, and you've surpassed everything that they were ever able to do. And I was like, I don't look at it that way, because the things that I had to deal with from my past and how people treated me was motivation to this day. But to have someone who was there during that time and know that, I've always been a wild person, and I was able to use that to do, something extravagant compared to, like those people said, be nothing but a Walmart greeter for the rest of my life. It's, it's great. And then seeing little kids out in public to have, that light in their eyes because they get to meet, me, and that making them happy, and getting to see parents and kids have a moment where they're like, hey, if that's the thing that the dad was able or the mom was able to take their kid to do, and they get that moment in memory forever, being part of that means way more than a lot of other stuff.
seems like you took life lessons and criticism and just kept slapping on and it got ahead by the more people that especially in a small town. I mean, it's crazy. All right. What about, as we talked about your wins and losses, you've obviously lost twice or more. What's your record? Sorry, I don't know.
6-2. 6-2.
Twice, yeah. You've lost twice. What did you learn from those losses, man? And obviously the wins are celebratory, but the losses kind of sting and hurt. And what do you recommend for those that are competing out there, including in Power Slap?
Anyone who knows what it's like to lose, especially at the highest level of something that has engulfed your life and you've become obsessed with, it sucks. It absolutely sucks. But, like I said earlier, I've been a loser in life in many of other ways before this. So as terrible as it was, and as rough as coming back from this last loss has been, having people around you that care, your team to care about you, people to reach out and check on you, someone who's going to call you on your BS like my wife would, even if I say I'm okay or whatever the scenario is, she'll gladly be like, you're full of shit. What's the deal? What's going on? Let's talk about it and get it figured out. So having a good support group around you to be able to be like, hey, we know this sucks, but you're not being yourself, and it's definitely taking a toll on you, is the biggest thing I can say. So that way, when you do fall, as long as you want to wallow in it before you start getting back up to trudge on, that time of wallowing can definitely be shortened with the right support of people around you.
I love that, man. And it sounds like you have that at home, and with success, having a good family, I think is a greater success than anything else. I've met a lot of wealthy people that seem like they have it, but they don't have that support, and they're not that happy. So, it's something to consider. And I ask all my guests, obviously, if you could go back in time, any point, you said you had a tough life and you've been through hell and you kept slapping on. What advice would you give to your younger self in that moment, and when?
It would, I'll go back to the coach that used to like to tell me that I was going to be nothing but a Walmart greeter because I worked at Big Lots in high school, so that was his correlation. As petty as it may sound, I've held on to that shit since I was probably 16. And it's in those moments knowing like, hey, these people were never going to be part of the solution for you to be a better person. They were only there to add fuel to the fire, to where I either went off to the negative things and the bad stuff that they assumed I would be doing, or I finally pull it together. And when I want to quit, when I want to stop, when I think it's over, when it's when I want to take the easy way out, that thought pops back in my head and is like, hey, you weren't supposed to make it past 18, not be in jail, this, that, or the other. And now I have a beautiful family. I've traveled around the world and got to compete for one of the biggest promoters in the world, who's only getting bigger and doing more things. So just hold on, hold steadfast, and keep fucking trucking along.
I love that, man. It sounds like that guy sounds like an asshole that you probably want to slap the shit out of. But I always say you meet people in life, either they're a blessing or a lesson. And he's a lesson, and you are moving forward. And who knows, Dana White is opening up so many different leagues. He's now into boxing, I see, and
absolutely.
And you got quite a lot going on. So, man, you never know if Power Slap doesn't get it together, get you another shot. You got opportunities. So, Dana, if you're listening, get John back in there slapping the crap out of someone. He's ready. And I look forward to watching you. Watching you knock somebody out, slap the crap out of somebody, and move forward as you've done in life. So that's great, man.
No, I greatly appreciate that. He's always looking for savages to step up to the plate and do what needs to be done. And I've let him know on several occasions, and I'm sure with my body of work so far, that I'm one of those savages that's willing to step up and do what needs to be done.
That's good, man. That's good. Final question: who slaps harder, you or your wife?
Man, I'm gonna say me, but my wife's probably got a better record at beating me than everybody else in Power Slap. So
yeah, that's how it goes, man. That's the married life. So you're you know what? At least you're honest. That's good. Well, there you have it, folks. John Davis. We're gonna link all his info below. Check out his Power Slap fights on YouTube. I enjoyed watching them. Quite a journey. John, thanks for making the time to come out and share what Power Slap is all about. You sound like the type of dude to get a beer with, and watch what you say, because you never know. You got a good right. I appreciate you coming on the Ideal Hour, my man.
No, thank you very much. I appreciate y'all reaching out, and it was an honor and a pleasure.
Cool, man. Thanks.